Hello, I'm Brady Smith, Superintendent of the Lopez Island School District. I'm back with the second video of our school budget information series. In the previous video, I gave an overview of how public schools in Washington State are funded and how our overall budget includes state, federal, and local levy funding. In this video, we'll spend a little more time talking about the history of school funding because it's important to understand the context and where we are today. How we got here. The first thing to know is that state funding does not cover all of our operating expenses at the Lopez School, and it hasn't for decades. This is the case for many school districts, but especially true for small districts. Our expenses are not extravagant, but because of our size, we do not have the opportunity to achieve economies of scale that you find in larger school districts. Most of our costs are fixed, meaning they do not fluctuate based on enrollment. However, our revenue does fluctuate. The cost of a teacher remains the same whether there are 10 or 20 students in a class. The cost to maintain our buildings remains the same whether there are 200 students on campus or 100. We can highlight these examples in many areas, but I think you get the picture. Like in many school districts across the state, our school district bridges the gap between state funding and our expenses with an Educational Programs and Operations levy. First approved in 1992, this levy has historically made up the difference between what the state funds and what our school spends on operating expenses. Again, this is not an unusual scenario. Out of the 295 public school districts in Washington state, 289 of them currently have EP&O levies. In 2007, a coalition of community groups, school districts, and educational organizations sued Washington State for failing to meet its, quote, paramount duty, unquote, in adequately funding education. The result was a decade-long process where state legislators grappled with the funding issue, ultimately landing on an outcome that increased the level of funding the state gave to each school district. However, and this is the critical part, at the same time, the state restricted the amount districts could collect from local levies. This was a huge blow to our school district. This restriction, known as the McCleary decision, resulted in a loss of approximately $360,000 annually of voter-approved levy funds. The increased amount per student we now receive from the state does not come close to the amount of money we lost by not being able to collect the voter-approved levy amount on Lopez Island. So starting in 2018, our school district was faced with a difficult and unsustainable financial reality. We were bringing in significantly less funding than we needed to operate. Here's the other piece of sobering news when it comes to the school's budget. Like I mentioned in the first video, our overall enrollment has dropped notably from pre-pandemic levels. Many families that moved here during the pandemic have returned to the cities they left. Also, given current trends of declining birth rates and the well-known challenges of housing on Lopez Island, our enrollment is unlikely to return to the levels we saw before the pandemic. Remember, the state reimburses schools based on student enrollment. When enrollment drops, so does our funding. But because most of our expenses are fixed, we are unable to reduce expenses proportionally. Thus, a small drop in enrollment has an outsized financial impact. So what steps has LISD taken to address our financial challenges? We've managed our funding discrepancy to date through a variety of means, the most notable being reductions in staff and spending down our reserves. The reserves. Before the McCleary decision, the Lopez Island School District had a healthy amount in our reserve fund, essentially the in case of emergency fund. In the last few years, we've spent that down to zero. School board policy used to require 9% of the prior year's expenditures be held in reserve, but because of our ongoing financial challenges, the board changed the policy to require a minimum of 5% in reserve. Even with that change, we've not been able to maintain the board policy of 5% in reserves. As any business owner knows, the highest operational cost is most often staff. In the last few years, when we've had staff members retire or move on, when possible, we made the difficult choice to not replace them. In the case where we cannot absorb the loss, the hire of a replacement at a lower salary is usually our approach. Specifically, in the past 4 years, we've seen 7 senior level staff members retire. In all cases, these were staff members who'd been here over 20 years and were at the top of the salary schedule. Those retirements helped with balancing our budget initially. However, we are not anticipating more retirements in the near future. On the administrative side, since 2018, we've continued to reduce hours for district office, secondary, and elementary office staff. We combined the principals of our elementary and secondary schools into one principal position. We used to have 2 full-time positions in maintenance and grounds, but this year we did not hire anyone, and I took on that role as a volunteer. On the teacher side, we've combined classrooms in both elementary and secondary. We've also offered fewer electives overall and eliminated our culinary program, foreign language classes, though we'll be offering Spanish 2 next year. And both of our unions, the classified union and the teachers union, have negotiated contracts with little to no salary increases to help with the school budget. I shared these details with you in the spirit of transparency and accountability. We are truly leaving no stone unturned when it comes to maximizing efficiencies and cutting expenses wherever possible. And when I say we, I'm including myself, the school board, our administrative team, school staff, and our amazing network of community supporters. Despite our significant financial challenges, there are many, many things happening at the Lopez School to be excited about. And if you spend time here with our students, you, like me, would be optimistic about the future of the Lopez Island School District.